try to do tonight is we're gonna bring these guys out here, and instead of doing a question and answer,
a little different.
We're gonna let them talk. Just let them hang out, right?
Let them hang out. You guys good with that, right? I don't think they're good with it, man.
You guys aren't good with it?
No, I don't think they're good with it.
Hey, Tommy, Gerard, Charlie, I don't know if they're good with it.
Well,
They are good with it. They are. Okay, and then so we're definitely Tommy Lee Edwards is in. Charlie is in.
Yeah.
Gerard said you might just do his part.
yeah, I'm gonna do his part.
Come on, we need reaction.
It's totally
all
fair.
right, guys.
I'm used to that reaction from a crowd full of women. Disappointment.
Sad disappointment. So yeah, I think we're gonna dim the lights. We're gonna bring these guys out, and we're gonna let them chat for a little while.
That sounds great.
Thank you guys again so much for coming to NC Comicon 2015. Without further delay, here's Tommy Lee Edwards, Charlie Adlard, and Gerard Way.
Pass holders, elite. So I'm Tommy Lee Edwards. This is Charlie Adlard and Gerard Way. And so we're just gonna have a chat really with you guys. You know, we're all here as people who are fans of comics and the whole genre, like you guys, and also as creators. So we're here to kind of share any of our experiences, any of our background, and you know, that's kind of it. And then we'll kind of open it up to you guys. If you've got any questions, anything you want to ask. I live here. This is my hometown. So I moved here about, I don't know, 17 years ago now from LA. Charlie came over from the UK. What's your town?
Anyone heard of Shrewsbury? One person.
So,
UK.
yeah, so we've come from all around. Gerard came in from LA yesterday. And so yeah, basically,
Why did Shrewsbury get such a big influence?
I know. Well, that's like Robin Hood and shit, right? It's like you live in the forest and with the Ewoks, and right?
I wear a bowler hat and run every day.
Yeah. So,
Drink tea out of a China cup.
well, what's cool is that all of us are mutual fans of each other, I would say, and so that's what me and my good friends who we run the North Carolina Comicon with, that we all just really try and bring in people that we want to spend time with, and I just really happy to have two of my favorite creators here with me. And what's cool is that we're all spread around the world, obviously, but we all get to work together, get to communicate, get to work for publishers and studios all over the world. And with comics, I guess we'll just kind of start with that. Comics, I know that all of us, I assume you too as well, Charlie, were a fan of comics as a kid. All of us kind of started there, mostly when we would buy them at the local convenience store, at the drugstore. Is that what you did, Charlie?
Yeah. I had gotten, like I was telling you earlier, I got sick and I got my tonsils out. So my grandma bought me like one of these 3-packs of comics, and I was like reading stuff and then going to the drugstore to get them like every week. I knew it was like what I always wanted to do.
I had a similar thing with my grandparents would bring me to the library, and at the library sometimes they would bind all the comics together and put them in like a square bound thing on the shelf, and there was a lot of Marvel stuff. What kind of stuff were you reading most? X-Men?
Yeah.
Woo! And Charlie, what was some of your first experiences with comics as a fan?
I remember way back in 1972, my dad bringing me a comic book called The Mighty World of Marvel. Obviously, I lived in the UK, and it was the first time that Marvel UK had collected the American comics into an anthology, because anthologies work better in the Britain, which never really worked in the States. So it was a black and white reprint of the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man.
Black and white, wow.
Yeah, they were done in black and white. And the Hulk. And I was hooked from that. I was drawing beforehand, but sort of as a 6-year-old, directionless.
Yeah.
But literally, as soon as that comic came out, that was it. And at the same time, I remember getting an Asterix book as well. At a petrol station, were having a promotion in my town, and you fill up your car a number of times. You got an Asterix book. So one side I was being fed American comic books, and unbeknownst to me at the time, I was being fed French comic books as well.
And what about like later in life? I know with like 2000 AD and stuff like that, that's like massive in the UK. When did that stuff start to affect you as you got a bit older?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, 2000 AD started, anyone that's a 2000 AD Judge Dredd comes from 2000 AD. So that started in 77. I wasn't into it then. I came into it via another anthology comic called Star-Lord. I think it was about in the late 70s, early 80s.
That's about Guardians of the Galaxy?
It was another Star-Lord. But it didn't last that long, and what British comics used to do was if a comic wasn't working that well, it would just amalgamate with another comic. And 2008 was always the big one, so Star-Lord was published by the same publishers, so it just became 2008 featuring Star-Lord for a while, until it was just absorbed completely, but it ceased to be. But by that time I was reading 2000 as well.
Right, sure. And now, Gerard, some of your favorite comics would be X-Men and stuff, and they were kind of getting into the 90s, so like Liefeld and Jim Lee and all that kind of stuff. And then were you, at that time, were you writing your own stories, drawing your own characters, all that kind of stuff?
I was drawing my own characters pretty early on. Like I was coming up with characters and like basically just making comics. And then I got into like Liefeld, Jim Lee, and like that whole big thing that happened. And but then almost like right after that, I discovered like Vertigo and Grant Morrison and all that stuff. It kind of definitely changed how I looked at comics and what I wanted to do in comics. It sort of changed after that. I wanted to do like superhero stuff, and then it became different after reading Grant's work.
What do you see as the main difference? Like when you say, is there like a definition between what's a superhero comic and what would be considered a Vertigo comic? And then sometimes I can see them merging. I mean, like with your book, Umbrella Academy, it has a sort of vibe that I can see. It feels like the X-Men I knew as a kid in a way, but at the same time, I feel like it could live in the Vertigo universe.
Right. Yeah, I guess they can like kind of connect in some ways, for sure.
It seemed like the Vertigo stuff started to be a little aimed at slightly more mature audiences, slightly more sophisticated
And that was
stories.
exciting to me as like a 15, 16-year-old who reads that whole one supposed to read.
Yeah. I'm a little bit older, and it's like I was like in the mid '80s, and like freaking out over Electra Assassin and Dark Knight and Batman Year One. But Electra Assassin was just mature enough that I remember my mom found the copies and made my dad take them back to the comic shop. And he didn't. And he kept them in a little paper bag and said, "Don't tell your mom." And still to this day, that was Frank Miller and Bill Sienkiewicz, and two of my favorite artists ever. And Bill Sienkiewicz was a creator who and is a creator that I still look up to, and he was pulling a lot from other influences. You know, he was pulling a lot from, especially stuff like 60s and 70s illustration, stuff like Bob Peak and Bernie Fuchs and all this stuff. And what it did was when I looked at those comics, it made me curious about those illustrators, and it opened up another world. And then you would look at, you know, and then I was really into, you know, Walter Simonson and Howard Chaykin and these guys. And then as I got older, I got to meet these guys, and then we would share our influences with each other, you know. So I think that's something that I was curious about a little bit is were there certain books that you found, Charlie, that you would be like, oh, this is really cool, and open a door to something else, and then in the long run, you found maybe, you know, a writer or an artist that really affected you, and still there's a stamp there that will be there really for you forever, as far as your own work.
The biggest stamp really early on when I was a kid was, again, I didn't start reading the authentic American comic books until after I left school, actually, because it was easy enough to get the anthology.
When you were, like 9, 10?
No, 18, 19.
I thought you dropped out earlier.
No, I was sorting through. Oh yeah, such a rebel.
Yeah, but when Star Wars came out, Marvel UK did Star Wars movie, so they're basically taking segments of obviously American Star Wars movie, like they're going to take about a third of the comic to obviously extend it over the month because it was a week. So they also had a backup script as well, so obviously they had the book out, and it was just they were taking it from everywhere. You know, I actually did see the American Star Wars in Star Wars Weekly, that's where they call it. But the first artist for me that I noticed as a kid was Michael Golden, because they were reprinting microfilms at the time, and Golden worked so well in mine. And it was sort of, I do remember sort of seeing the artwork and actually noticing the name for the first time. I want to follow this guy. I want to see what more this guy's done.
It's interesting when you reach that point, you know, all of a sudden you realize it's not so much. It's still, you know, always be about the story and about the characters, but then you start to, all of a sudden you're following certain writers, certain artists.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
And you make that switch.
Yeah, you start to realize it's the creator
Yeah.
that you want to follow.
Yeah. When you realize, like, oh, I like this, even when it comes down to lettering, you know, that's when I became a fan of Sean Workman when I was a kid, because he was lettering Thor and all this stuff of Walter Simonson's. And when I became a professional, one of my goals was I need to work with John Workman, and for 20 years he's lettered every single one of my books. So that's a big, you know, I still to this day, you know, just geek out over John all the time.
Does he still do the same thing? Letter the easy pages first?
Sometimes he does go out of sequence, and I can tell that he's because he wants to feed me stuff to keep me busy.
Yeah, sure. Because when I was doing the X-Files, he was lettering the X-Files, and of course
great.
that was in the day when I was physically sending him the pencil pages. He would letter them, and then he would physically send me them back. Yeah, there was a lot of posting, and praying that the FedEx man wouldn't lose the pages.
Racing the FedEx all the time.
And John would do all the sound effects first. Any no buttons, just sound effects. He'd do all those first, and then I'd get a series of pages with just minimal dialogue, and then he'd eventually bite the bullet and do the heavy dialogue pages. So it was all out of sequence.
And no, where's Robert Kirkman live? Like Tennessee?
Well, he divides his time out between LA and Kentucky.
Oh, no. Yeah, right. So, LA, Tennessee, Kentucky, same thing. So he's there, you're in the UK, you know, I mean, when you're working on Umbrella Academy, for example, you've got Gabriel Ba is, where does he live?
Brazil.
So, you know, we're all kind of spread all around.
Yeah.
So, and then the publisher Dark Horse is in Oregon, Image is in California, so everybody's kind of spread all around, and that's why about, you know, when I left LA, I really liked North Carolina, and I was like, well, we'll try it for a year, And that was 1996. So we're still here.
Well, you know, as long as you've got an internet connection,
Yeah.
a printer and a scanner, you can
Yeah.
work anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need to be. You know, I always remember when I first started the industry, everyone used to say, "Oh, you need to move to New York. You need to be near Marvel and
Yeah,
DC
yeah.
to go in the offices, you know, every week or whatever with your finished pages, because that's how you pick up work." That doesn't work anymore. I don't think you need to be. You certainly don't need to be near. You know,
Speaking of-
offices or whatever.
That makes me think about now, when you were kind of you went to school in New York, right? At School of
Yeah,
Visual Arts?
I went to SBA, yeah.
And then you went to try and work at, was it DC or
DC,
Marvel?
I interned at DC for like a year and tried to get work there afterwards, and they didn't want anybody that had aspirations of working in comics, so they didn't hire me. Which, you know, looking back is whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. They didn't, you know, they just didn't want somebody that, they wanted somebody that was going to be focused on.
Just doing their job and not
Yeah.
using it as a stepping stone.
Yeah, it was very
The
obvious
next
that I
step.
wanted to break into comics.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's most of my editors I worked with are like that. So, you know, I think that, you know, some of the best editors I've ever worked with were guys who were, you know, writers who were trying to get stuff going.
Well,
you
yeah,
know,
a friend of mine, well, Andy Diggle, the writer.
Yeah, sure.
He was editor of 2000 AD for a couple of years, and he's really transparent about it. He just saw it as a stepping stone
Sure.
to a writing career,
Right.
you know,
Well, it's
being an
like-
editor.
like Scott Alley at Dark Horse in a way was, you know, an editor who was always writing his own stuff, but, you know, it was a good training ground for him, I think, so then he started writing his own. He edits Hellboy at the Umbrella Academy, edited a couple projects of mine, including Vandroid, and so he's you know, he's writing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's great to work with an editor who's a good writer.
yeah, it is.
Because it's great to get that kind of feedback.
It makes you a better writer too, and you know, I learned a lot on that first draft novel with Scott. There was a lot to talk about, and a lot of mistakes that I made that he kind of educated me on, and it really helped. Got to the point where now, like I said, it's sort of we're not, you know. And it took a couple trades to get there, to make it a little effortless, you know, but I
And
got there.
how was it, I guess, was Umbrella Academy the first time you had written something for someone else to draw? Was there something before?
Yeah, well, the comic that was published when I was 15, my friend.
When it was published when he was 15.
My friend in high school, he was like the best artist in the school, and I suckered him into drawing a comic that I'd written, and that was the book that got published. And so I'd always written for artists. So.
Because I know that, you know, I mean, 'cause you draw
Yeah.
all the time, and I really like, personally, when I get to work with a writer who can draw, because we're really good at communicating.
Yeah.
You know, did you learn much, or was it like, I know you learned a lot with Umbrella Academy, like you just said, but how was the journey with Gabriel and working with another person and getting it, you know, I mean, did all that go really well, like right off the gate, or was
It did, yeah, it did. I met him at a comic convention. We had already decided we were going to work together, and I met him, and we were both kind of awkward, and then we just kind of started working, and right away I was like, oh, this is what it's like, you know, working with an artist, and he would kind of make decisions sometimes, and you're like, oh, that wasn't his work, but then you would like start to enjoy those things. You'd be like, oh, this is really making it better. So you learn pretty early on to give up some of that control, you know. But our relationship has always been like super smooth and cool, easy going, you know.
That's great. I read something with Walter Simonson years ago, who is known as equally as a writer and an artist, and he says one of his favorite things about writing for other people is that anticipation of what's going to come back. You know, what's he going to see?
Right.
He's like, he was excited to see, like, you know, how did they envision it? Because, you know, it's very hard to, you know, share the same vision in your brain.
Absolutely. It's interesting talking about working with writer-artists. Early on in my career, I worked with Keith Giffen and on Mars Attacks and a few other things. And Keith didn't write scripts. He just drew thumbnails with speech balloons.
Whoa.
And which was weird for an artist to get, because you would get these thumbnails, and it was just basically that's the only way he knew how to write something. He wasn't doing it to say you have to do it like this. But of course, you're getting something back which was there in front of you, a layout and everything. You're thinking, right, am I going to change this, or shall I leave it the same? If I don't change it, does that mean I'm just sort of slaving to his, the way he's done it? And then so many times I'll change it, and I'm thinking, am I changing it just for the sake? I'm changing it to make it look different because somebody else has already drawn it for me. You know, it was. I love working with Keith, but it was a weird one, that. And I know Duncan Fagredo, when he does Hellboy, he has the same problem with Mike Mignola, because Mike Mignola draws little thumbnails. And again, I don't think Mike is forcing Duncan to draw Hellboy like his layouts. But Duncan has the same problems that I was having. It's like, why do I do it?
I thought about that.
Yeah.
I drew one Hellboy story, and it was so hard because Hellboy's so iconic looking that
you have to draw him in a certain way.
Yeah, if he doesn't look like Mike Mignola drew it, it looks wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
And how many issues have you done now of The Walking Dead?
144.
That is insane.
I will see it through to the bitter end as well.
That's fantastic. That's great.
So don't worry.
They're not going to kill him off.
Always involved. The ability to like sit down and draw a comic. Like I still have never done it. Like I've never sat down and drawn my whole like a 22-page comic. I've never done that. I don't have the discipline. Like and Gabrielle, he'll just like do one a day, and he'll just like wake up, sit down, and just do it. And I can't do that. Like I've never been able to.
That's it. I can't explain it. It's just I just do it. I get up and do it. People just say, tell me your technique, and tell me. I just go. I just get up and I just sit down and go. I work from top left down to bottom right. That's done, and then get another page and work from top left down to bottom right. That's how it happens.
So, it's funny. You always get that question, like, how do you get inspired? You know,
as an artist, it's easy because you've got a script. I feel for the script writer, because you're the ones that are genuinely working from a blank page. I don't write, so I've got something. I've got the inspiration. It's there with the script. It makes my life a lot easier.
Well, and it really is. That's what shows that all this starts with a story. So and really our job as drawing it is figuring out what's the best way to tell that story.
Absolutely.
How are Robert Kirkman's scripts? Are they very elaborate? Are they kind of loose? Are they?
No, we've worked together for so long. So long.
What year did you start, by the way?
Sorry?
What year did you start, by the way?
It would have been
2004?
3, 4? I'm terrible on dates. I mean, we obviously celebrated the 10th anniversary a couple of years ago, so it's about 12 years.
Yeah, wow.
But
I'm like 2 months of, I have the Superman book coming out next month. After like 3 months, I'm like, I'm just so sick of this, man.
Well, I used to. My frustration was the opposite, you see, because up until The Walking Dead, I was constantly frustrated that, I'd be working on a mini-series or a one-shot here or something, and I'd be like, I've just got into the characters and I've got to leave it alone now. It's either finished or my tenure on the book's up, and, and I long for sort of that longevity to almost to get to a point where you can draw the characters in your sleep, you can sort of, them so intimately, it makes it so easy to draw almost.
I feel like I figured out how to finally draw Clark Kent on like the last page. I know. you find out with the writing too, like it's like by the time you've gotten towards the end of it, I finally know this character. I finally feel like he's, you know, she has that voice.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like you could, I wish I could kind of go back, or are you like, you gotta just, hey, it's done, you gotta let go?
There's sometimes you wish you could go back, you know, and do things a little differently once you know the character better. You know, that happens for sure. Yeah, writing Umbrella Academy was definitely a trip. I really connected with Rumor a lot, and that made her easy to write. And then slowly I'd start to connect to the other characters, and then they got easier to write. They all got pretty easy to write in a great way, not a bad way.
Yeah, I connected with the monkey.
Yeah, we killed her.
Yeah, no,
Which I was explaining to Tommy today. We killed him because we didn't have anything big happening in that issue. It was like, it's horrible, right? There was nothing big happening in that issue, so I pitched my editor on. I was like, what if we just do something crazy like kill Puggo? And he's like, that's great. And I was like, what's that? What do you mean? Oh, no.
he just,
His head got blown off.
yeah, he just shot.
His head got. No, it's okay. His head got blown apart. And it was really graphic too.
Yeah, it's super. No, it works because it's super. You didn't expect it. It was super shocking.
Yeah, it was shocking. That's cool. Yeah, that's why we did that though, yeah.
It's good to, it's good. We were also talking recently about generally knowing where you're going to end up, you know, and with something like Umbrella Academy, it's a limited series, but then at the same time you've created a universe that you can sort of do more of it.
Right.
And now with an ongoing story, you know, that's a different animal, you know. So, but at the same time, you've had like story arcs, you know, these major stories within the story. And do you ever like wonder, like, or does Robert kind of talk to you about, yeah, I think this character will end up eventually going this route with it, or is it just kind of you see what happens as it goes?
It kind of varies because it really does depend on when we last talked. You know.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, when we do talk, we went through a really nice period once where we would literally Skype each other every 2 weeks, the glory days, and yeah, that was great. I was really we were feedbacking off each other, and then we'd get busy, or Robert would get more busy, you know. My busyness sort of remained fairly constant, but you know, he was sort of up and down, you know, and you know, sometimes we don't talk for a couple of months, and then I'm suddenly finding that I'm literally working on the book, not knowing what's happening in the next issue, which is kind of cool actually, because then you sort of start reading it as a fan reads it, and you know, I mean, talking of shocking moments, one of the most shocking moments for me doing the whole of The Walking Dead still is, and I hope this isn't a spoiler because it did happen a long time ago, was the death of Abraham. Because he didn't tell me. He always used to tell me that he was going to kill a major character. And I was like, okay, yeah, fine, you know. But he didn't tell me about that one. So I literally got the script and it was like, page 2, arrow goes through Abraham's head. It was like, oh. And I spoke to him afterwards and he just said, yeah, and it's like what you were saying, it's like the characters start writing themselves. And he said, I was writing Abraham and I just suddenly thought, yeah, it's his time. So he didn't even have time to warn me, and he was literally typing it out maniacally as it was happening.
Wow. It is cool to do that stuff though. You shake it up that way, and then then you're forced to come up with a solution. Like I ended up having to come up with a lot of solutions in Umbrella Academy before program that I wouldn't have come up with because he's like this hyper intelligent scientist and shit. So, but it definitely caused more problems killing him. Definitely wish he was not dead.
Well, there's a whole sort of
But it's
fun sort of time travel element to the kid.
And he
so-
shows up in the second trade.
Yeah.
You do get to see him, so.
Yeah. As far as what kind of, so we're all so busy, do you really get much time to read any comics?
I don't get too much time to read them. I'm trying to think of what I recently read. I actually can't remember.
Like at the shop, what was it, yesterday, we went and picked up,
Paper Girls.
Paper Girls.
Yeah,
And
I'm really excited about that. I haven't read it yet, so I'm really excited.
Transformers, G.I. Joe.
Yeah, Transformers, G.I. Joe, something really. Yeah.
And is there anything you kind of try and pick up, or?
Lazarus.
I love
that. I think that's an amazing comic. I do actually read a lot of Image, and that's not blowing smoke up my publisher's posterior, but I think they're truly exciting.
Well, it's a great variety, and
absolutely,
that's one of the cool things about today is, we talk about the good old days. We go to the drugstore and have our rack, but it was so limited our choice.
Yeah.
And today, with being able to go to a comic shop and see such a huge variety of genres, and so you've got horror, you've got sci-fi, you've got superhero, you've got stuff for all ages.
Sorry to interrupt, but this is why I've been so influenced by the French comic books, is because you go over to France or Belgium and their scene is so vibrant, so exciting, because they've got so many different genres. You could argue their dominant genre is science fiction, but within that sort of dominant genre, it doesn't rule the industry like the superhero market rules the UK stroke American market here, but it's great to go to a place where it's so well regarded and you could almost write in any genre and it's equally as important to the publisher.
Yeah, I find that to be one of the things that's really exciting about Image too, is like the amount of different stuff they put out.
Yeah, it seems to be a no-brainer, you kind of think, well, if the idea is good, publish it.
Right.
That's why the big two don't seem to get that.
And, now, and even if you can't find it there, you just go on the web, and there's so much amazing stuff that people are self-publishing, and, and nowadays there's, you can just do it yourself and put it online. Where do you work where do you spend your time when you work? Describe, like when you're sitting there drawing, is it at your house?
Yeah, I've got a studio. I've lived in the same house now for almost over 20 years, and when I first bought it, it was an old, it was a couple of doctors owned it before, and he had a private surgery, a tiny little room on the end, which was perfect for a studio because it was it was a joint to the house, but it was sort of set.
I just keep imagining Dr. Frankenstein's
Yes, it had the chains and a big... the only medical evidence in there was a sink, which is useful for me. So, but I remember just going in and there was only two things I was after in my youth when I bought this house. One was for a studio, and one was for, because I play the drums in a band, one was for a house where I could rehearse with my band, so I didn't have to leave the house at all. To me. So, and I found that in this house, and I've built onto the studio as sort of an extension and things like that. But it's pretty much remained the same. And as I was saying before, I go, kids go to school, I go to work. Pick kids up from school and kind of finish work. It's my 9 to 5. I'm a day person. I like working in the day. I feel more creative.
Yeah, so not a lot of late nights, and Unless
No,
you
no,
really,
no,
really
no.
have to. We've all been there.
I've fallen into the same pattern though. Like I just get up, I take my daughter to school, I come back to work, I pick my daughter up from school. Like it's awesome. I love it.
That's great.
It's made me a lot more focused.
It's good to have like a routine, and it's also, I think, good for me, like, to have like a deadlines and a schedule, you know, have that sort of, like, it really helps you stay focused.
Well, like, yeah, you give yourself, you get your schedule, your publishing schedule, but I find it's really good to give yourself a personal schedule.
Mm.
I tend to always say, you know, if I'm working a normal day, I always say I want to get 3 pages of pieces done in that day. And it kind of gets me annoyed when I don't. I get really frustrated.
Yeah, I try and shoot for that one. That's crazy. Do you listen to music when you work?
I listen to the radio
Yeah.
because I find, being a music fan, I tend to find that if I'm listening to CDs or whatever, on Spotify or whatever, it's almost too distracting.
So when you say radio, you listen to the talk radio?
No, I just listen up.
What is radio with the UK?
What is this radio which you speak?
So let's like the variety of...
Yeah, I listen to pretty much one radio station. Yes, BBC radio station has 6 Music, which is probably which is a brilliant radio station, absolutely amazing. And yeah, I mean, I find even though I only pencil The Walking Dead when I am inking, I find inking is a more kind of zen thing, and I can listen more to things then because you just sort of get yourself in a
Yeah, when I'm doing layouts or the early stage, I have to have it silent. I have it totally silent, or maybe like Mark Mooney or something. Like some scores that I've heard a million times. They're just there. You know? I mean, do you listen to music at all when you're writing?
I can't listen to podcasts. I can't listen to people having conversations. I can only listen to music.
Yeah.
But I listen to music like a lot while I write, and it doesn't distract me. It's actually, it can distract me, but yeah, I have this desk in this little office. It's been the same desk for like, I don't know how many years now, and that's the desk I write all the Umbrella Academy at. I just put on the radio. That's like one of the first things I do with prompt music. I just kind of settle into it. But it's a drag because there's a lot of really good podcasts now. Once people start talking to each other and having a conversation, write a script.
I started to get tired, which is weird. I just started to pay attention to them and I get really relaxed. It's really weird. So, like if I listen to a podcast or a book on tape, like when I'm driving, or I'm gonna crash.
She works upstairs and she has an art studio and she's doing fine art and she's just laughing her ass off on me like and I'm like, I can't do that.
Well, you're more, you gotta be more tortured.
For sure.
I'm not sure how much time we have, so does anybody have any questions? Let's go right here in the front. That's okay. As I point right at you, and we're all like focused on exactly what are you gonna say? Oh, I'm sorry. We're all good though. We're all having fun.
I'm an aspiring comic artist and writer, and I want to know if you had any either specific or just general advice for me.
Yeah. Well, if there's any general or specific advice as far as an aspiring comic book artist or writer.
I already do some drawing myself, but I never put things together.
Well, putting your work together and is a huge step, obviously. But I'd say a big part of it is showing, the language of comics is very unique. So that it's like, you've got this starting from top left, going to bottom right, sort of language that we have. And I think it's important to be able to show that you can do that. And then if you're interested in, talking to publishers or whatever, you can do that at places like this, like conventions. And then doing just what you're doing, going around and visiting with everybody and showing your work and getting some feedback.
First step of having some of my art on, but like, pages and then I get.
And then you get to go to something else. Yeah. Well, I think, how would you handle that, Gerard, when you're coming up with a story and then you, I mean, I think we've all started many projects that we drop.
I start a lot of them.
Yeah. How do you stick with it? How do you?
Sometimes they don't.
Yeah. I think a big part of it seems like maybe like we said, finding out the end.
Yeah.
Where are you going?
Yeah, how do you stick with it?
You know.
Well,
what's that?
I mean, yeah, I'm not a writer, but a lot of writers will say you start with the end first, and then work backwards from it, because then you've got the sort of the structure. But I'd definitely say you're doing the right thing in terms of talking to people. I always say, you know, as great as the internet is and getting your work out there online and everything, you can't be going to places like this and meeting people and actually talking to people face to face. I think that is still one of the.
And right there, you know what your goals are, and you come up with what are your goals, you know, and where do you want to go, and you know, and coming up with, I want to finish this thing, stick with it, you know. Let's go with that over there, dude. Yeah.
My question for Gerard. You said you like the X-Men and you worked for DC before as an intern. I think after reading your Umbrella Academy, you'd be freaking perfect for a property at DC that has never gotten the recognition it needs after Morrison, Doom Patrol.
Yeah, it's funny about Doom Patrol. I did a pitch.
Oh yeah?
And it got approved.
For like a 2 or what?
I don't know what it was for. It was just my take on Doom Patrol, and it got approved. The comic was actually supposed to happen.
What?
And I couldn't fit it into my schedule. I had to bail on it. Yeah.
Someday?
I don't know. it was Becky. I had hired Becky Clinton. She did all the art for the pitch too, and everybody loved it. It got approved.
Can I read your pitch?
You can pick one.
There's a project that Gerard and I are trying to do together.
Yeah.
At DC. Which has been approved.
Which has been approved.
And it's ready to go, except for us figuring out can we make it happen.
Yeah, we had breakfast this morning trying to figure out. I should release that Doom Patrol art so you guys can see it. I think you guys will dig it.
Alright, let's go over here. Yep, you got it. Yeah, you. No. Go like this.
For all of you.
Not you, but that's fine. I was going with the black shirt. But if you want to like slip your friend's question in there, that's...
Okay, my question is, can you guys dance for us?
Oh. Actually, before we came out on stage, I was just talking about that Charlie does breakdance, and which is why we have the rug, because he only can breakdance in the nude, but he gets a lot of burns.
I've tested the carpets a bit too rough. So
That's too rough?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I need a less pile.
Yeah,
Less horse pile.
yeah, I don't know if I really did.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm not dancing.
So, yeah, we're a bunch of wussies. Since you started, really quick, go ahead.
Kind of for all of you, since all of you have like made a lot of accomplishments, like can you think of one that you're like most proud of? Like what do you think of?
I'm still most proud of my first ever creator-owned book, which is a book probably not many of you might have heard of, called White Death, which was a World War I graphic novel which I did with a friend of mine called Robbie Morrison. And it was the first time I've ever I'd just come off the X-Files, and my life, my career had sort of taken a bit of a spiral down because of certain things that happened on the X-Files and stuff. Anyway, and I just thought, and it was no secret because I'll try and be brief on this, I'd earned quite a lot of money, obviously, because the X-Files was so successful. So I put all this money into the production of this book, and I did it on grey papers with charcoal and chalk as my main sort of medium. And Robbie wrote the most incredible story. It was set on in the Italian, the Austro-Hungarian Italian border in World War I, and the White Death referred to these avalanches, which both sides were caused by firing their cannons up into the mountains, which is obviously all part of the true story. And it was just because we sort of got together as a little group and published this thing. And we went to France because it obviously had more of a kind of a European flavour. We tried to sort of crack the European market with it. And it's been reproduced a couple of times. An image had just done a reprint of it, but yeah, because of that, because it had, it sort of became the sort of the start of the whole creator-owned thing. With me, it still has a special part, and because it was so experimental as well, it was, it was still. Yes, that's it.
As far as it's shocked by my creator-owned thing would be my most proud things. He was just turf that I did for Image, and then. It's hard to narrow that down, though, isn't it?
Yeah, probably.
Winning the Eisner. What did you win the Eisner?
That's the series.
Was that for the first series?
Right.
That's amazing. I mean, the first. I'm going to go up top right there with the. Yes, you. I would say both. What do you think?
Yeah, both for sure. Like, what's the saying? Like, inspirations for amateurs, they say. There's some truth to that. Like,
you can't wait for it.
Yeah, you can't. You have to just sit down. You have to grind through it. Like, if you ever listen to Neil Gaiman talk about the grinding through it, like it's legit. Like you have to sit and just power through something.
Stephen King says the same thing.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, you have to. That's the only way it gets done. Like if you're sitting there waiting for inspiration all day, it never gets done. I've been in situations where I didn't deliver because of that, because I was just waiting for inspiration and I missed deadlines and stuff. Both with music and comics.
I'm gonna try and.
So yeah, it's
the guy with the chair. I just wanted it to be over. It was a big, some wrestling shit was gonna go down. All right.
You guys want to play D&D with me?
I played D&D when I was a kid, but I wasn't very successful at it because nobody would play with me. And I was also one of those people, like, when you talk about starting a story and not being able to sort of finish it, I was so into, like, making the characters and coming up with the story, and I was meant to be Dungeon Master, and then we would never finish a game. Did you ever play any role-playing games?
Oh, I attempted it once with a friend, some friends, and I lost interest as soon as I realised I had this incredibly powerful character, but he lost on the throw of the dice. I was like, rubbish. And have you played it again?
Yeah, I played D&D. I still play it. I guess we can play. I guess we can play D&D.
You're the luckiest man alive!
the newest edition. I played the newest one.
I did have some of those.
What's your main character?
Oh, it is? I don't know.
It reminds me of, I used to play second edition when I was a kid, and the new edition reminds me of second.
I used to have those, I love the art. They were like so like, those Larry Elmore paintings, you know, the guy with the dragon. And I had that on my wall.
And something like that art.
Yes.
So, like, where are we going to play?
He's got a chair for you.
There will always be a seat at my table.
Should we pick the costume?
Party boys and
Right
party!
there. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, yeah.
My question is sort of a more, I guess, philosophical question. I find in writing that doing it with a purpose, as opposed to just writing for the sake of writing, I guess it's to all three of you, I guess, do you ever write just for meaning in life, as weird as that sounds?
Do you ever write just for meaning? Like,
yeah, just to have like a purpose instead of just doing it for.
Instead of it being like for work.
Yeah, exactly. Because I feel like a
tough.
lot of times writing is sort of a way of. For some people, it's like venting and all this other stuff, but for me, it's always been meaning is why I do it, and I want life to matter and it not to be wasted and to make something of it.
well, yeah, I mean, you want what you do to
Yeah.
matter. You want people to read what you do, and you want it to matter. You want it to mean something, you know. At the same time, it's really important to just do something for the sake of doing it as well, because it's really healthy. So, you know, you do something because you want somebody to enjoy it, but then you have to do it just for you. Like, you have to sometimes write the stuff that you think only you will like, you know. So, I think that's the reason.
Thank you.
Hey, Alan Gill, how we doing on time? Are we fine? We got some time? Couple more? I don't know what you're doing. 2 more questions. He's giving me a piece. I don't know. Make love. Make love, not war. I'm gonna fight you. All right. Let's go to some. We get anybody else up top? Let's go over here. Right there. Yeah. Pitching comics. We're just sort of doing that, you know, with other projects, and sometimes it's tough because it's hard to kind of just like cold pitch something to people, you know. So you sort of have to. A big part of it is sort of building a relationship with that publisher, that editor, having some other stuff that shows what you've been able to do, having. But a big part of it is like having. What's your story? What are the characters? What's the beginning, middle, and end? How do you see it happening? But a big part of it is doing what we've been talking about, going to conventions and stuff like that. I would say.
And it helps to have an editor that's a fan of what you do.
Yeah.
Like that is really important. And you develop those relationships over time, like going to conventions and things like that. But that's for sure. It helps to have a fan.
Everyone's like pointing at one person over there.
Okay.
Okay, whoever that is that you guys are all pointing at.
This better be good.
Yeah.
Oh, did the girl have a name? No, she doesn't have a name.
And what was the other question? Were there any?
Were there any major plot changes that you went at the last minute to scrap?
Kill the monkey.
Yeah. That was a big one.
All right, I'm gonna sneak one more in. I'm gonna sneak one more right here. She asked if you would want to do another comic that was linked to an album, maybe the way that Killjoy did.
Bullets!
Looking back, I don't know that Killjoys worked the way I wanted it to, you know, so I kind of look back at that as a lesson. I don't know, it was hard. It was really hard making the music and then making the comic and having them connected. It was just super hard. And I don't know that it really worked. So it's one of these things that I'm kind of cautious of moving forward. Like, do I want to connect this? Do I want to just like put all my effort into this one thing and make this one thing good and focus on that instead of like splintering off and focusing on more things, you know? Because it got really crazy with Killjoys in terms of just like all the art direction and the design of the costumes and the cars and the, you know, it got really overwhelming. And I think it was all over. So I'd have to think about it.
Tell me Killjoys.
Well, tomorrow at 10 a.m. I think.
10 a.m.
Gerard's doing a panel which will focus on Umbrella Academy and the exact stuff. Charlie will be doing a panel focusing on The Walking Dead. I'll be floating around and doing panels on collaboration and everything, storytelling. We're going to be doing workshops. We're going to be learning and sharing all kinds of really cool stuff with each other. So I really hope to see all of you more in the next 2 days.
Where is it? Well,